Towards the end of the Paleozoic era, the areas of Texas and also of neighboring New Mexico in this video were at the bottom of the ocean. The last period of the Paleozoic, the Permian period, from about 300 to 250 million years ago, marked the end of this Paleozoic, and there was a rich variety of marine life alive at the time, although it would seem quite foreign. Modern bony fish, the teleosts, were not yet alive. Modern corals were not yet alive. But many organisms were, from primitive corals, which are extinct today, some groups of primitive arthropods, such as trilobites and sea scorpions. There were armored squid known as cephalopods. Brachiopods, which are still alive today, were much more diverse. There were diverse fish alive at the time. And so the Permian had a great diversity of marine organisms, which one can find in this area because it was a marine reef, a vast marine reef in a shallow sea, which was near the equator at the time. If you were to visit White Sands National Park in southeastern New Mexico, you would see vast expanses of gypsum. This gypsum resulted from the evaporating seawater from this great Permian Sea, which then left the salts behind, which formed gypsum. If you were to visit Carlsbad Caverns National Park in southeastern New Mexico, you would see the cave system where the great marine reefs dissolved from sulfuric acid, creating great underground caverns of what was once the middle of these vast marine reefs during the Permian. If you were to visit Guadalupe Mountains National Park in Texas, near the New Mexico border, one would observe the remains of these Permian reefs, which form this vast landscape, including the highest points in Texas. These reefs formed during the Permian period, once again when this area was the bottom of the ocean, in a shallow inland sea near the equator. Because this was such a great set of conditions for living things, over tens of millions of years, it is estimated from 272 million years ago to 260 million years ago, organisms lived here, and many deposited calcium in which would later become limestone. And one can observe the limestone reef, which resulted from the sponges, primitive corals, and other organisms which deposited limestone while in this reef. And if one were to then explore this area, one could find fossils of the prehistoric organisms which lived here during that time. As the limestone in the mountains erodes, it then forms the floor of the dry river beds which one finds in the area. This limestone is the remains of the calcium carbonate laid down by Permian marine organisms. All of the carbon from the marine organisms which lived during this time are the reason for the rich petroleum and natural gas deposits in this area.